The joke left my mouth before I had time to dress it up as anything safer. "If you hate this building so much," I said, tightening the hitch on my travel trailer in the parking lot behind our condos, "you should just come with me." I expected a laugh, maybe an eye roll, maybe one of those polite neighbor smiles people give when they're already backing away. Claire Donovan looked at my trailer, then at me, with a duffel bag in one hand and rain shining in her hair. "Okay," she said, like she'd been waiting. That was the moment I should have paused. Asked a sensible question, maybe several. "Where are you going? Why are you holding a bag? Are you in trouble? Do you understand I was joking?" Instead, I stood there like a man who had spent 52 years learning how to be calm, only to have one woman undo the whole education with a single word. My name is Jack Mercer. I restore old furniture for a living, which means I spend most of my days sanding down things other people gave up on. Tables with water rings, chairs with cracked legs, cabinets with bad histories. I understood damaged wood better than damaged people. At least that was what I told myself. I lived in a small condo complex outside Portland, Oregon, the kind with too many rules about trash bins and not enough parking spaces. My wife, Ellen, had been gone 6 years by then. Cancer did what cancer does. It came in quiet, took up space, and left silence behind. After she died, I bought a used 24-foot travel trailer from a retired couple in Bend. It was cream-colored, with a dent near the back corner and blue curtains Ellen would have hated. I fixed the plumbing, replaced the flooring, and stocked it with canned soup, decent coffee, and the kind of maps nobody uses anymore. Every year around the first week of October, I took it on the road for 10 days. No big plan, no dramatic soul-searching. Just highways, campgrounds, bad diner pie, and enough distance to remember I was still a person, not just a man living in the after. That morning, I was supposed to head south toward the coast. First stop, a little RV park near Newport. I'd been looking forward to the sound of rain on the trailer roof and nobody needing me for anything. Then Claire came around the corner of Building C. She had moved in 8 months earlier, 2 doors down from me. 48, maybe 49. Dark blonde hair she usually wore clipped up, green eyes that noticed more than they admitted, and a way of carrying grocery bags like she was annoyed they existed. She taught art at the community college, though I only knew that because Mrs. Hanley from upstairs treated privacy like a puzzle she was determined to solve out loud. Claire and I were friendly in that neighborly way. We'd talked by the mailboxes. I'd helped her jump her car once. She'd brought me a plate of lemon bars after I fixed the loose railing by the stairs, then told me not to get sentimental because she'd made too many. I liked her. Quietly. At my age, you learn the difference between attraction and fantasy. Attraction is noticing the way someone laughs with their whole face. Fantasy is deciding that means they belong in your future. I tried not to do the second one. Mostly. That morning, she didn't look like the woman who teased me about polishing old dressers like they were priceless antiques. She looked pale, tired. Her raincoat was buttoned wrong. One sleeve of her sweater hung lower than the other, and her duffel bag had been packed in a hurry, the zipper straining around a corner of fabric. "Claire," I said, "you all right?" She glanced back toward the building. That was when I saw him. A man stood near the glass doors under the awning holding a phone at his side. Tall, silver-haired, expensive jacket. The kind of man who looked like he corrected waiters gently enough to make it worse. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't chasing her. Somehow that made my shoulders tighten more. Claire turned back to me. "Are you leaving now?" "Yeah," I said slowly. "In about 10 minutes. "Where?" "Coast, maybe Northern California if the weather behaves." She looked at the trailer again, at the little window over the sink, at the spare tire mounted on the back, at the road dirt on the fenders. Then she gave a short laugh, but there was no humor in it. "Sounds nice." That was when I made the joke. "If you hate this building so much, you should just come with me." And she said, "Okay." The rain tapped on the trailer roof. Somewhere behind us, the man under the awning took one step forward. I finally found my voice. "Claire, I was kidding." "I know. You can't just—" I stopped myself because of course she could. She was a grown woman with a duffel bag and eyes that looked like they had run out of places to rest. "I mean, you can, but you might want to tell me why." Her mouth trembled once before she controlled it. That small movement hit me harder than tears would have. Because if I stay here another 10 minutes, she said, I'm going to let him explain why I'm overreacting. The man called from the awning. Claire, don't make this embarrassing. There it was. Not loud, not dramatic, just sharp enough to slice the air between us. Claire closed her eyes. I looked at him, then at her. Ex-husband? Almost, she said. That one word carried a whole courthouse. The sensible part of me said this was none of my business, that I was a widower with a trailer and a careful life, that lonely men should be cautious when a beautiful woman shows up in the rain asking, without asking, to be rescued. But I also knew the sound of someone being cornered politely, and I knew I didn't like it. I opened the passenger door of my truck. Claire stared at it. I said, "Put your bag in the back seat." Her eyes lifted to mine. "Jack, this isn't a kidnapping. You can change your mind at the stop sign." For the first time that morning, something like a real smile touched her face. Generous. I'm famous for my reasonable escape policies. She moved quickly then, before either of us could think too much. She tossed her duffel into the truck, climbed in, and pulled the door shut. The man from the awning started across the parking lot. I walked around to the driver's side, rain soaking the back of my shirt. He reached me just as I opened the door. "Excuse me," he said, with the confidence of someone used to being obeyed. "This is a private matter." I looked past him at Claire sitting in my truck, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Then I looked back at him. "Funny," I said. "She looks public enough to leave." His face tightened. "You don't know what's going on." "No," I said, "but I know she said okay to a road trip with a man who owns 3 pairs of the same jeans, so I'm guessing her morning's been rough." For half a second, anger cracked his polished surface. Then Claire rolled down the window. "Daniel," she said, her voice steadier than her hands, "if you follow us, I'll call my lawyer and then your daughter." The man went still. That was new. I climbed into the truck and started the engine. The old V8 rumbled under us. My trailer lights blinked red in the rain. Claire didn't look back as I pulled out of the lot. Neither did I. Not until we reached the first stoplight 3 blocks away. The wipers dragged water across the windshield. My hands rested on the steering wheel. Claire sat beside me, breathing like each inhale had to be negotiated. "You can still get out," I said gently. "No judgment. I'll turn around, drop you anywhere you want." She looked at the road ahead. Then she reached into her coat pocket, pulled out her phone, and held it toward me with the screen lit. There were 17 missed calls, and 1 text from Daniel. "If you leave with him, I'll tell everyone what you did." Claire's voice was quiet when she said, "I need to tell you something before you decide whether you still want me in your truck." I kept my eyes on the light, though it had turned green. A horn tapped behind us. Not angry yet. Just a reminder that the world still expected ordinary movement. "Jack," Claire said, "I'm thinking. That usually requires driving." "Sometimes." The horn sounded again. I eased through the intersection, slow enough that the driver behind me threw up both hands as he passed. Claire held her phone between us like it might bite. "If you leave with him, I'll tell everyone what you did." There were sentences that opened doors. There were sentences that opened graves. I pulled into the parking lot of a closed tire shop 2 blocks later and put the truck in park. The trailer settled behind us with a soft creak. Rain blurred the cracked yellow lines outside. "Okay," I said, "tell me." Claire gave a thin laugh. "You don't want to keep driving first? Put a little distance between us and my bad decisions? I'm towing a 24-foot trailer in the rain with a woman who just fled her almost ex-husband. My bad decision quota is already full." That got a real laugh out of her, small and surprised. Then it faded. She looked down at her phone. "Daniel didn't hit me? I should say that first." I waited. People always want a simple story, bruises, police photos. Something they can understand without feeling complicated. She rubbed her thumb along the edge of the phone case. "Daniel's better than that." The rain drummed harder. "We were married 21 years, she said. "He's a cardiologist, well-respected, charming in public, generous when anyone could see him being generous. He remembered birthdays, donated to the right fundraisers, cried at his mother's funeral. And at home, At home, he corrected the way I loaded the dishwasher until I stopped loading it. Then he complained I didn't help. He told me my paintings were interesting in the voice people use for children. He tracked our accounts because he said I was bad with money. He made friends with my friends better than I did. I knew men like that. Not intimately, thank God. But I had refinished enough dining tables while husbands hovered nearby, answering questions meant for their wives. Claire swallowed. When I finally filed for divorce, he acted wounded, like I'd shot him during grace. What did he mean by what you did? Her jaw tightened. For a moment, I thought she might change her mind. Tell me to start driving. Tell me it was none of my business, which would have been fair. Instead, she unlocked her phone and opened a photo. It showed a painting. Not a pretty one. A woman stood in a kitchen, only her face wasn't finished. The appliances behind her were too sharp, too clean. A man's shadow stretched across the floor, long enough to touch her feet. In the corner, a small red bird lay against a window, its neck bent. I didn't know much about art beyond how to repair frames, but the painting made my chest feel tight. I painted 12 of them, Claire said. A series. I called it Domestic Studies. I used details from my life, but nothing exact. No names, no faces, just feelings, I guess. They're good, I said. They're honest, she corrected. That too. Her eyes flicked to me, grateful and wary. A gallery in Seattle wanted to show them. Small place, but respected. It was supposed to open next month. She took the phone back. Daniel found out. How? My email. He swears he doesn't have my passwords anymore, which is funny because my passwords keep knowing him. I didn't smile. He said if I displayed them, everyone would know they were about him. He said I was defaming him. He said he'd sue the gallery, sue me, make sure the college questioned my judgment. Her voice thinned. Then he said he'd tell people I stole from his mother. I turned toward her. Did you? Claire closed her eyes. There it was, the part that made her ashamed enough to run. When his mother was dying, she gave me a ring, she said. An emerald. Family piece. Daniel had gone to get coffee. She put it in my hand and said, for when you need to remember you belong to yourself first. I felt something old and tender twist inside me. Did Daniel know? He knew she loved that ring. He knew it disappeared after she died. I didn't tell him because by then I'd learned that anything given to me became something he managed. Do you still have it? Yes. Then that's not stealing. In court, maybe not. In a whisper campaign? She looked out the windshield. Daniel doesn't need to win legally. He just needs to make me look unstable, greedy, bitter. He's good at that. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. I glanced down. Mrs. Hanley, of course. I ignored it. Claire noticed and gave a humorless smile. News travels fast. You have no idea. That woman could have warned Pompeii. My phone buzzed again. Then Claire's did. Daniel. She stared at his name until the call vanished. A voicemail notification appeared immediately after. Don't listen, I said. I have to know. No, you don't. She pressed play. Daniel's voice filled the cab smooth as polished stone. Claire, you're being irrational. I'm worried about you. Getting into a vehicle with a man you barely know is not normal behavior. I've already spoken to Elaine. She agrees this is concerning. Come back before this becomes something we can't fix. Claire went rigid. Elaine? I asked. My sister. The voicemail continued. And if Jack Mercer thinks involving himself in my marriage is wise, he should understand I know things about him too. My blood cooled. Claire stopped the message. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. Then I laughed once, not because anything was funny. Well, he works fast. Claire turned to me. What does he know about you? That I'm old enough to resent being threatened before breakfast. Jack. I sighed and rubbed a hand over my face. There were things everyone in the building knew. Widower, furniture guy, keeps to himself, owns a trailer, drinks black coffee, brings in other people's trash bins during windstorms. Then there were things nobody needed. My wife died 6 years ago, I said. I know. What people don't know is that the last 6 months were ugly. Pain meds, fear, bills. Her sister thought I should keep fighting every second, every treatment, every miracle some clinic was selling online. I looked at the rain sliding down the glass. Ellen asked me to stop. Claire's expression softened. She was done. She was in pain. She wanted hospice, not another hospital bed. I signed the papers because she couldn't hold the pen anymore. I could still feel that pen. Cheap plastic, blue ink, heavy as a weapon. Her sister told people I gave up on her, said I wanted my life back. Did you? The question was quiet, not accusing. I answered the only way I could. Yes. Claire inhaled. I wanted her back, I said. I wanted the life we had before. I wanted one morning where I didn't wake up already grieving, and I wanted it to be over because watching someone you love suffer is its own kind of dying. My throat burned. So if Daniel dug around enough, maybe he found some version of that story. Maybe he thinks shame is rare. Claire's hand moved across the space between us and rested on my forearm. It was light, careful. I'm sorry, she said. I nodded once because more than that might undo me. Another call came in on her phone. Daniel again. This time she declined it. Where were you planning to go? I asked. She glanced back at the trailer. Honestly, I got as far as the parking lot. Well, lucky for you, my travel accommodations are only mildly suspicious. That almost smile returned. I put the truck in drive. First rule of the road, nobody makes big life decisions hungry. There's a diner 40 miles west with terrible coffee and excellent pancakes. You're still taking me? I looked at her. Do you want to come? Her answer came faster this time. Yes. Then seatbelt. She clicked it into place. As we pulled back onto the road, my phone buzzed again. I expected Mrs. Hanley, but the screen showed an unknown number. A text. Mr. Mercer, this is Daniel Rowe. You are making a serious mistake. Claire is not who you think she is. A second message followed before I could react. Ask her what happened to the last man who tried to help her. I did not show Claire the text right away. That was my first mistake. My second was telling myself I was doing it to protect her. People always dress fear in nicer clothes when they can. We drove west through a curtain of rain, the city thinning behind us. Strip malls gave way to fir trees. The trailer followed with its familiar weight, tugging at the truck on curves, reminding me that every choice had momentum. Claire leaned her head against the window, eyes open, not sleeping, not even close. Her phone lay face down in her lap. Mine sat in the cup holder, screen gone dark, carrying Daniel's message like a live coal. Ask her what happened to the last man who tried to help her. I lasted 12 miles. At a long straight stretch past a Christmas tree farm, I said, Daniel texted me. Claire didn't move, but something in her face shut like a door. What did he say? I picked up my phone and handed it over. She read both messages, once, twice. Then she laughed, low and bitter. Of course. That's not my favorite answer. She passed the phone back. His name was Michael Torres. Last man who tried to help you? My lawyer. That surprised me enough that I looked over. Eyes on the road, she said. I corrected a little too sharply, the trailer wheels humming over the shoulder rumble strip for half a second. Claire gripped the door handle. Sorry, I said. No, I'm sorry. I'm not used to telling this story at highway speed. Take your time. She looked out at the wet trees. Michael was my first divorce attorney. Younger than Daniel, older than me, smart, kind. The kind of man who remembered what you said in meetings. Daniel hated him immediately. Because he was helping you. Because he didn't charm easily. The road rose ahead, gray and slick. Michael pushed for financial disclosure, she continued. Real disclosure. Daniel had money hidden in accounts I'd never seen. Investments, a cabin he'd put under an LLC. Nothing shocking for rich people, I guess, but enough to prove he'd been lying for years. What happened? Michael died. The words entered the truck and stayed there. I waited for more, but Claire pressed her fingers to her mouth. Car accident? I asked gently. She nodded. 2 weeks after filing the motion. He was driving home from his office late, went off a rural road outside Lake Oswego, hit a tree. Was Daniel involved? I don't know. Claire. I don't know, she snapped, then immediately closed her eyes. Sorry. No need. She breathed in slowly. The police said Michael had been drinking. His blood alcohol was over the limit. Daniel said it was tragic, and maybe I should reconsider surrounding myself with unstable people. My hands tightened on the wheel. Was Michael a drinker? Not like that. He had a glass of wine sometimes. He had 2 little boys and a wife he adored. He wasn't reckless. She turned toward me. But grief makes people want clean answers. His firm encouraged me to settle. My sister begged me to stop escalating. Daniel stood in our kitchen and told me some battles attract casualties. A coldness moved through me that the heater couldn't touch. Did you report that? To whom? The police had a dead man, a toxicology report, and a grieving client who sounded paranoid. She shook her head. I changed lawyers, a woman this time. Ruth Patel, tough as nails. She told me never to speak to Daniel without a record. Smart. Expensive. A mile marker flashed by. So when Daniel says, ask what happened, Claire said, he wants you to think I destroy men who help me. That I'm dramatic. Dangerous, maybe seductive. Whatever story makes you doubt the woman sitting next to you instead of the man sending threads. It was a good trick. I hated that it had almost worked. I should have shown you immediately, I said. Yes. No softness, no rescue from the truth. I'm sorry. She nodded, still looking at the road. Thank you. We reached the diner just after 10. It sat beside a gas station at the edge of a logging town with fogged windows and a sign shaped like a rooster. I parked along the far edge of the lot, taking up 3 spaces because the trailer demanded respect or revenge. Inside, the place smelled like bacon grease, wet coats, and burnt coffee. A waitress with silver braids called everyone Han without meaning anything by it. We took a booth near the back where Claire could see the door. I noticed, so did she. Habit, she said. Good one. We ordered pancakes, eggs, and coffee strong enough to remove paint. For 10 minutes, we pretended to be normal people. She asked about the trailer. I told her I'd named it Mabel because every stubborn object deserves an old lady name. Mabel? Claire said, amused despite herself. She leaks when insulted. Then I'll be respectful. You should. She's carrying my emergency chili. That earned me a real smile. It changed her face completely. I looked away too late. Claire saw that too, but said nothing. My phone buzzed on the table. Unknown number. A photo came through. My stomach dropped before I understood why. It was the diner parking lot, my truck, my trailer. Rain silvering the windshield. Taken from across the road. Claire went white, then a message. You're making this worse for her. I stood so fast my knee hit the table. Coffee jumped in our mugs. Jack, Claire whispered. I was already moving. Outside, rain slapped my face. I scanned the gas station, the shoulder, the line of parked cars across the road. A dark SUV idled near the far curb. The driver's window was tinted. I took 3 steps toward it. The SUV pulled away, not speeding, not squealing tires, just leaving with the calm of someone making a point. I memorized the plate. At least I tried. Oregon, Blue Tree, last 3, maybe 6 kj. By the time I got back inside, Claire had paid the bill and packed our food into boxes. We have to go, she said. Agreed. No, Jack, we have to decide where we're going, not just away. In the truck, she called Ruth Patel, her lawyer. Speakerphone. 3 rings, then a woman's voice sharp enough to cut rope. Claire, tell me you're not with Daniel. I'm not. I'm with a neighbor, Jack Mercer. Daniel followed us or sent someone. Where are you? Claire looked at me. I hesitated. Ruth caught it. Mr. Mercer, if you're listening, I don't care how noble you feel. Do not improvise with a controlling man who has money. Where are you? I gave her the town and diner name. Get back on the main road, Ruth said. Do not go to a campground reservation in your name. Do not use Claire's credit cards. Claire, is your phone location off? Claire froze. Ruth cursed softly. Turn it off now. Better yet, power it down. Claire did. Mr. Mercer, Ruth continued, do you have somewhere private? Not family, not obvious. I thought of my planned RV park in Newport. Paid reservation. My name. No, I said. And then I remembered. Ellen's brother Tom had owned a piece of land outside Yachats, a half-cleared acre above a creek, with an old gravel pad and a power hookup for visiting campers. After Tom died, his daughter kept it but never used it. I'd parked Mabel there twice. I might, I said. Go there, Ruth said. Send me the address from your phone only. Claire, listen carefully. Daniel filed an emergency welfare request 30 minutes ago. He's claiming you're emotionally unstable and maybe with an older male neighbor against your better judgment. Claire closed her eyes. Of course he is. There's more, Ruth said. He attached a statement from your sister. The cab seemed to shrink. Claire's voice dropped. What did Elaine say? That you've been erratic, paranoid, obsessed with punishing Daniel. Claire folded forward like she'd been struck. I looked at the rain-smeared road ahead and put the truck in gear. Ruth said, And Claire? Daniel is claiming you stole the emerald ring and used it to pay Michael Torres for services beyond legal representation. Claire made a sound I won't forget. Not a sob, a break. The line went quiet for a beat. Then Ruth added, I need to ask you something, and I need the truth. Do you still have the ring? Claire slowly lifted her head. Her eyes moved to her duffel in the back seat. Yes, she whispered, but not where Daniel thinks. Ruth Patel went silent for exactly 2 seconds. Claire, she said, where is it? Claire looked at me, then at the rain, then back at the duffel. In a paint box. Ruth exhaled. Tell me it's with you. It's with me. Good. Do not take it out in public. Do not photograph it. Do not discuss it with anyone except me. I'm discussing it with Jack. I gathered that. Ruth's tone sharpened. Mr. Mercer, congratulations. You are now a witness, transportation, and possibly a liability. Always nice to be useful. I'm serious. So am I. A pause. Then Ruth said, Daniel is trying to build a story before Claire can build a record. That means he wants panic. He wants mistakes. Don't give him either. Claire wiped under one eye with the heel of her hand. Elaine really signed something? I'll send it when you're somewhere safe. She's my sister. I know. No, Claire said, voice cracking. You don't. She knows him. She knows what he does. Ruth softened, but only a little. People often know and still choose comfort. I'm sorry. The words landed hard in the cab. We drove on through low clouds and dark timber, the trailer swaying behind us whenever wind crossed the road. Claire sat very still, one hand pressed to her stomach like she was holding herself together from the outside. After Ruth hung up, the silence stretched for miles. Finally, I said, Do you want to talk about the ring? No. All right. Another mile passed. It's in a wooden paint box with brass corner, she said, under tubes of oil paint, wrapped in an old rag. I nodded. Daniel bought me that box our first Christmas after we married. He told everyone he was supporting my art. She gave a hollow laugh. Then he complained about the smell of turpentine for 20 years. Sounds efficient. What? Being both generous and resentful about the same gift. That pulled a tired smile from her. We turned off the highway south of Yachats onto a narrow road that climbed into wet forest. The pavement ended after 2 miles. Gravel cracked under the tires, branches brushed the trailer sides like fingers. Claire looked around. Are you sure this is a road? Legally, probably. And emotionally. Mabel and I prefer not to label things. The land appeared after a final bend, a small clearing above a creek ringed by alder and spruce. There was a weathered post with a power outlet, a flat gravel pad, and an old picnic table turned green with moss. Beyond it, the creek moved fast between stones swollen by rain. I parked carefully, checked the level, then got out to unhitch. Claire stepped from the truck and stood in the clearing with her arms folded tight. Mist clung to her hair. For the first time since the parking lot, no building loomed behind her. No Daniel under an awning, no diner window, no one watching from across the road. Just trees. She looked smaller without the danger in sight, or maybe I finally saw how tired she was. Inside the trailer, Mabel smelled faintly of cedar, coffee, and old upholstery. I turned on the heater and lights. The little space glowed amber against the gray afternoon. Claire stood just inside the door taking it in. The narrow bed at the back, the tiny dinette, the 2-burner stove, blue curtains, maps tucked beside the radio. It's nicer than I expected, she said. I'm choosing to take that as praise. You should. My expectations were low. There's the Claire I know. Her smile faded almost immediately. I showed her where to put her bag, how the latch on the bathroom door stuck, and which cabinet contained food that would not technically poison us. She sat at the dinette while I made coffee because that was what I knew how to do when the world came apart. Boil water, measure grounds, keep hands busy. After a while, she reached for her duffel. Ruth said not to take it out, I reminded her. I know. But she unzipped the bag anyway and removed a wooden paint box. Brass corners, scratched handle, one side stained blue. She set it on the table like evidence. I need to know it's still there, she said. I understood that kind of need. After Ellen died, I checked her voicemail recording every night for 3 months, terrified her voice might vanish if I didn't guard it. Claire opened the box. The smell of paint rose up, rich and mineral. Tubes lay in messy rows, some flattened, nearly empty, brushes wrapped in cloth, a palette knife. Beneath them, an old gray rag. She unfolded it. The ring sat in her palm. Even in the trailer's weak light, the emerald looked alive. Deep green, set in gold, old-fashioned and beautiful without trying to be delicate. Claire stared at it. She gave it to me 2 days before she died. She whispered. Daniel had been arguing with a nurse in the hall. His mother kept looking at the doorway, making sure he wasn't coming back. Then she took it off her hand. What was her name? Marion. She sounds like she saw him clearly. She did. Too late for herself. Not too late for me, maybe. The trailer felt very quiet. Then my phone buzzed. We both flinched. Ruth had sent a file, Elaine's statement. Claire looked at it like it might burst into flame. Read it. You don't have to do this now. Read it. So I did. Elaine had written that her sister had become increasingly unstable since the separation, that Claire had invented cruelty where there was only marital conflict, that Claire was fixated on humiliating Daniel through obscene paintings, that Claire had a history of attaching herself to men who validated her resentment. I stopped. Claire's face was white. Keep going. No. Jack. No, I said again, and set the phone down. You can read poison yourself if you want. I'm not spoon-feeding it to you. Her mouth opened, anger flashing, then it collapsed into something worse. My own sister. I'm sorry. She used to hide in my room when our parents fought, Claire said. She used to crawl into my bed and put her cold feet on my legs. I failed math tests helping her with homework. I gave her my car when she got pregnant at 19. Rain tapped the roof. The creek rushed beyond the trees. Daniel paid for her son's rehab, she said suddenly. I waited. Twice. I didn't even think of it. Elaine said it was a loan. Daniel said family helps family. Claire laughed, but it broke apart. Nothing is ever just help with him. The ring lay between us on the table. Then my phone buzzed again. Not Ruth. A message from Daniel. You have until sundown to bring her back. Below it was a photo, my trailer in the clearing, taken from the trees. For a moment, neither of us breathed. Then something slammed against the outside wall. Claire cried out. I grabbed the first weapon within reach, which happened to be a cast iron skillet. Not dignified, but persuasive. Stay behind me, I said. That is a skillet. It's a vintage skillet. Jack. Another slam hit the trailer near the back window. I moved to the door, heart punching hard enough to hurt. Through the small glass pane, I saw only trees and rain. Then a voice outside called, Claire? Not Daniel's, a woman's. Claire went rigid. The voice came again, shaking. Claire, please. It's Elaine. Claire's face changed in a way I can only describe as grief recognizing a familiar car in the driveway. Don't open it, I said. She's alone? I don't know. Elaine knocked again, frantic. Claire, I know you're in there, please. Claire moved toward the door. I stepped in front of her. Window first. She didn't argue. I eased the curtain aside. Elaine stood in the rain beside the trailer, soaked through, arms wrapped around herself. She was younger than Claire by maybe 4 years, with the same chin and none of Claire's steadiness. Behind her, the trees stood dark and thick. No Daniel, no SUV. That didn't mean anything. I cracked the door with the chain still on. Step back. Elaine stared at the skillet in my hand. Is that... Hospitality varies by circumstance, I said. Step back. She did. Claire's voice came from behind me, thin and cold. How did you find me? Elaine's eyes filled. Daniel. Claire flinched. He put something in your paint box, Elaine said quickly. A tracker. He told me after you left. He said if I cared about you, I'd help bring you home before you ruined your life. Claire turned toward the table. The paint box sat open. The ring gleamed on the rag. For a second, nobody moved. Then I shut the door, unhooked the chain, and let Elaine in. She stumbled inside, dripping on Mabel's floor. Her gaze went to Claire, then the ring, then back to Claire. Oh God, Elaine whispered. You really do have it. Claire's face hardened. Did you come to confirm his inventory? I came because he's on his way. The little trailer seemed to shrink around us. I locked the door. How far? 10 minutes, maybe less. He made me drive with him, but we fought at the turnoff. I got out and ran ahead through the trees. Why? Claire asked. Elaine looked wrecked. Because I signed that statement. Claire said nothing. Elaine hugged herself tighter. He wrote it. I told myself it was mostly true. I told myself you had been erratic because you were scared and angry and I didn't want to know why. I told myself Daniel was helping my family. He paid for Owen's rehab, Claire said. Elaine nodded, crying now. And he reminded me every month. Claire looked away. I'm sorry, Elaine said. I was afraid he'd stop helping. I was afraid Owen would relapse. I was afraid of choosing you and losing the safety Daniel kept offering. It wasn't safety, Claire said. I know that now. Outside, an engine sounded faintly on the gravel road. Not close yet. Close enough. I grabbed my phone and called Ruth. She answered on the first ring. He's here, I said. Police are already en route, Ruth replied. I called after the photo. Stay inside. Record everything. Elaine wiped her face. He'll act calm if police come. Claire stared at the ring. Then she stood straighter. No, she said. He won't. She picked up her phone, powered it on, and before Ruth could object through my speaker, Claire pressed record and set it on the dinette. The engine grew louder. Tires crunched into the clearing. A car door opened. Then Daniel's voice came through the rain. Claire, come outside. No shouting, no panic. The voice of a man addressing a late dinner reservation. Claire opened the trailer window above the sink but kept the screen latched. Daniel stood near my truck in his expensive jacket, rain beating on his silver hair. He looked at the trailer, then at me through the glass, and smiled like we were both being foolish. Mr. Mercer, he called, you've had your adventure. Send my wife out. Almost ex-wife, Claire said. His expression flickered. Claire, this is embarrassing. Elaine stepped beside her sister. Daniel's smile vanished. You, he said. Elaine's voice shook, but held. I'm done. No, he said softly. You're confused. Claire laughed once. It was not a kind sound. Daniel's eyes moved to the table, to the open paint box, to the ring. There it is, he said. My mother's ring. Claire leaned toward the window. Marion gave it to me. My mother was medicated and dying. She was clear enough to warn me. His face tightened. There it was again, the crack under the polish. You ungrateful little parasite, he said. Elaine gasped. Claire went very still. Daniel seemed to realize his mistake because he smoothed his expression instantly. You see? This is what you do. You provoke people, then pretend to be wounded. Sirens sounded in the distance. Daniel heard them too. His gaze snapped to me. You called the police? Must have been the skillet, I said, very security-minded. He stepped closer to the trailer. Claire, listen to me. If you let this continue, I will make sure everyone sees what you are. The paintings, the ring, Michael. Claire's hand trembled near the phone. Then Elaine said, What about Michael? Daniel turned on her. Be quiet. No, Elaine whispered. What about him? Daniel's control slipped further. He was a drunk who thought sleeping with lonely clients made him heroic. Claire recoiled. That's a lie, she said. Is it? Daniel smiled. Who do you think suggested the toxicology angle? The clearing went silent except for the rain. Even Daniel seemed to hear what he'd said. Police lights flashed blue between the trees. Ruth's voice came quietly from my phone. "Tell me that recorded." "It recorded," I said. Daniel backed away from the trailer, already rearranging his face for authority. But this time, Elaine opened the door. I tried to stop her, but she was already outside, standing in the rain between Daniel and the arriving patrol car. "He threatened us," she shouted before he could speak. "He tracked my sister. He made me sign a false statement. He just admitted interfering in Michael Torres's death investigation." Daniel stared at her like she had turned into someone he could not name. Claire stepped down beside Elaine, holding the paint box against her chest. I followed with the skillet because at that point it felt rude to abandon tradition. The next hour was a blur of rain, questions, Daniel's smooth denials, Elaine's shaking confession, and Ruth Patel, arriving in a mud-splattered sedan like vengeance with windshield wipers. Daniel was not arrested that afternoon. Life is rarely that tidy. But he was no longer invisible. The recording went to Ruth. So did the tracker we found taped under the paint tray. Elaine recanted her statement. The police took a report. Ruth filed emergency motions before sunset. And Claire? Claire sat at Mabel's dinette after everyone left, wrapped in one of my old flannel shirts, staring at the emerald ring on the table. "I thought leaving would feel like freedom," she said. "What does it feel like?" "Like surgery without anesthesia." I nodded. "Freedom's overrated on the first day." She looked at me then, tired, rain-washed, alive. "I ruined your road trip." I glanced around the trailer, the muddy floor, the coffee cups, the skillet on the counter, the woman sitting across from me with her whole life cracked open and still somehow in her hands. "No," I said. "You changed the route." 6 months later, Claire's paintings opened in Seattle under the title Marion's Window. The emerald ring sat in a glass case beside the first canvas with a small card that read, "Gift from a woman who remembered." Daniel's reputation did not collapse overnight, but it began to rot in public, which was close enough. Elaine and Claire were not magically healed. Sisters don't undo betrayal with one apology, but they started with coffee, then phone calls, then truth. As for me, I still take Mabel out every October. Only now there are 2 mugs in the cabinet, a box of oil paints under the bed, and a woman who tells me my emergency chili needs emotional development. Sometimes, when the rain taps on the trailer roof and the highway unrolls ahead, Claire reaches over and takes my hand. And every time I think about that morning in the parking lot, the joke, the duffel bag, the one word that changed everything. "Okay, what would you have done if you joked that your neighbor should join your road trip?" And she said yes like she'd been waiting for a way out. And have you ever had one unexpected moment turn into the beginning of something much bigger than either of you planned? Tell me your story in the comments. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.